Live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development bi-weekly call. Today is January 19th. We are well on our way into 2023 and so excited for all the amazing work that's being done in the community by you community contributors. My name is David Warner with Microsoft. I'm a community program manager and I'm looking forward to being your host today. Let's talk about the agenda. We're going to see some updates on the community. We're going to talk about PnP .NET libraries, PowerShell. We're going to see the latest on yoteams, Microsoft Teams Toolkit, Microsoft Graph Toolkit, all the toolkits, independent publisher connectors. We're going to talk about some samples, script samples, team samples, Power Platform samples, and then everybody's favorite time, picture time with Together mode. So we look forward to you showing your fantastic faces to the community. And then we've got two amazing all-star presenters of the day. Luise Freese is going to talk about how to extend Azure AD to add pronouns to a people card component and Power Apps using Microsoft Graph. So much better Together storiness there going on. Then Lee Ford is going to talk about creating a conversational bot in Teams using OpenAI. So super exciting stuff. Now, let's talk about your opportunity to participate in this community because it is your community. We want you to participate. So one of the first things you could do is we absolutely welcome you to present a demo or a solution, a technical pattern, a tip or trick that you found very useful. You can do that just like our amazing presenters are doing today. You're able to do that as well. We even give you a badge for it, and you'll learn a little bit more about that later. But we made it easy for you. All you need to do is fill out a little bit form. You could also contribute on GitHub. If you've got samples or solutions that you also want to share, it's a double bonus. You can share it with the community, show it off on a community call. You could also provide feedback. We'd love to hear what's working, what you'd like to see more of, maybe what's not working for you, but we just ask you to keep it positive. Now, what are some of those resources that we're talking about? Let's take a look. We've got some developer videos and community videos, and those are going to start merging here soon. We've also got open source initiatives like CLI for Microsoft 365 and a number of other programs and initiatives that you can take advantage of. PnP.js, so much good programming resources for you there. We've also got a plethora of sample galleries, team samples, SPFX samples, Power Platform extensions, list formatting, ACEs. Oh my, the list goes on and you're thinking, how am I going to remember all of these things? You only need to remember one URL, and that is ak.ms/m365/community. That's going to be your gateway to such amazing resources like all that you're going to see and hear about today. Now, if you like calls, we got you covered. Let's talk about some more community calls. So the first is the Microsoft 365 Platform Weekly Call. What this provides you is direct access to Microsoft employees, meaning that the presenters are only Microsoft presenters. So you're going to get it directly from the mothership, straight from the horse's mouth, and you are going to love it. Then the other community-driven calls, Microsoft Identity Platform, Office add-ins, Power Platform, just had that yesterday, once a month. Looking forward to the next one. And then, of course, the two sibling calls, the one you're on right now, Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development, and then Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework. Those are bi-weekly, same bat time, same bat channel, Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific. You can tune in every Thursday of the year. We guarantee we'll be there for you. You can get access to all these calls, ak.ms/community/calls. Add them to your calendar. Don't miss them. They're like crystal balls into the what's new, what's now, what's next of Microsoft. And it's a great way to see how the world is using the technology that we all know and love. Let's talk a little bit about that Microsoft call. So next Tuesday, 24th of January, 8 a.m. Pacific, we're going to see a plethora, I got that in twice, of SPFX developers. Luca, John, and Alex are going to talk about SPFX and next steps with Microsoft engineering. So did I say a crystal ball? That is an opportunity to learn what is coming next and your opportunity to contribute and collaborate on it. And then Vesa and Andrew are going to be back for an amazing series on Viva Connections with Learn Module Tutorial 3. So do not miss that. You want to get that on your calendar and definitely take advantage of all this interaction opportunity with Microsoft because you can make a difference. Now, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to be able to partake of, be a part of, and we understand that it's not always easy to figure out how to do that. So Sharing is Caring is a program that we have started that provides you hands-on guidance on a number of topics, things like contributing to GitHub, writing for the web, using those SPFX samples that you're going to see talked about today on a variety of platforms, but you might feel like not quite sure where to start. Well, these sessions provide hands-on guidance in a safe space setting, meaning we don't record. You're going to work together with members of Microsoft, MVPs, other passionate, like-minded individuals in the community, such as yourself, and you're going to learn and ask questions. And so you can ask any and all questions without fear of, should I already know this? Is it going to be recorded? Is it going to go on record that I'm asking a question that everybody should know? Absolutely not. We all start somewhere, and questions are great. It's the only way we learn. So definitely come join sessions. We've got sessions scheduled, writing for the web next week, more sessions scheduled in February. We're getting these ramped back up, so please don't hesitate to sign up. They are absolutely free. And of course, you've likely, if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, been seeing a storm of badges being shared. Now, this is because we have started a recognition program for you. This recognition program is powered by Credly. Yep, that same Credly that provides those badges when you get certified on Microsoft certifications. We are offering badges similar to that for the amazing work that you're doing in the community. Absolutely free. There is no cost to it whatsoever. We just need you to opt in. We've got lots of new badges coming for 2023, as you may have seen, things for like adaptive card extension, CLI for Microsoft 365, PnP PowerShell, list formatting. I just finished up some with Hugo and Bob for team samples and SPFX samples. So the whole team's pitching in. We're looking forward to recognizing you all for the amazing work that you're doing. You can link them to your LinkedIn. See what I did there? Link them to your LinkedIn profile, share them on Twitter, share them with your clients and your managers, and let them know that you're making a difference. So don't hesitate. If you have any questions or you're seeing others get badges and you feel like you should have, definitely reach out to me or Hugo or Vesa and let us know. We absolutely can look into it. It's not a perfect system. We're still working on it, trying to perfect it for you. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. All right, let's move into some project-specific updates. We're going to start with PnP .NET libraries with Bert.
Thank you, David. For the PnP .NET libraries, this time both libraries crossed the 1 million downloads. So that's cool. So that's actually a lot of downloads that happened for those libraries. So they're not that old. So really cool. On the framework side, I think the main updates are from Schumann, who added support for .NET 7 in our build scripts. We added .NET 7 support in the libraries, but the build script wasn't updated. He fixed that. And Koen added an update for our mailing utility. The mailing utility you can use to send mails, obviously, but now you can also use the BCC address list when you want to send out mails using that utility. So quite cool. On the core SDK side, I did a number of updates around audience targeting. So you can now audience target navigation. You can prepare a library for audience targeting. There's documents how you can add an audience target to a document. And the other thing is we have some additional tenant and site properties. So if you work with the tenant model or the site model, when you request those using the admin library, you get additional properties, ones that were missing in that I just backfilled. And finally, we have, there was asking the community, like when we use like a user field, there's multiple users in there. How can you verify that those users are still valid before I set them? And for that, we introduced the validate users method, two methods that you can use to kind of just send in a Bullock set of VPNs of users, and it will return which ones are not valid, or the other method will actually ensure the users that are valid and return the SharePoint user objects so you can actually start working with those. And yeah, I think that's it. Gautam, let's go to PowerShell. Thank you all.
Thanks, Bert. In PnP PowerShell, we crossed the 4.6 million download mark, and we also reached a nice figure of 140 million commands executions per day, which is quite impressive. What's the update? We have added a new interesting feature, commandlet, which is called as the get PnP folder metric. So some old time SharePoint users might remember this page _layouts to stor storeman.aspx. So that displays lots of interesting statistics related to the SharePoint lists and sites and folders and everything. So this command is basically programmatically retrieving those statistics from there. Besides that, we also added filter parameters to the Azure AD service principal and the Microsoft 365 group command retrieval commandlet. So it also supports advanced filter queries. So you don't have to remember those consistency level eventual headers that you need to specify for certain graph commands. One very widely used commandlet is the invoke PnP SP REST command. So a lot of people use that to make direct requests to the SharePoint APIs. So we also improve that so that you can make use of the response headers for that. So some people use that in batch APIs, so you can use those response headers and do your processing there. Yeah, besides that, there was certain improvements to the set PnP tenet and the set PnP side commandlets as well. For next, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out on the discussion forum or the issue list. And yeah, that's it from my end. Over to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam. Well, I mean, so many millions in both those slides. I think the collective reaction to the community is, whoa! So congratulations to everybody. That is awesome. Very nice work. All right, let's move over to Yo Teams with Stephan.
Thank you, David. So we finally have a new release since today. A couple of hours released a new preview release for the generator for build-core and for yoteams-deploy. With support for manifest versions 1.14 and 1.15, and we also did some minor fixes in the generator as well as in the docs. So please give it a try and let us know what your feedback is and how we could improve. In terms of what's next, we are working on obviously releasing version 4.1.1, stable release of YoTeams for the above packages. We're working on docs. And we're still in the middle of figuring out how to support people who wanna get started with YoTeams. We're thinking about producing videos, tutorial-like videos, where we showcase things like how the generator works or how you could work with the generator. And if you have an idea for that, or if you have a specific ask, please let us know. Give us feedback under aka.ms/yoteams. We'd like to hear from you. With that, thanks, and back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Excellent job, and congratulations on that new version. Excellent. All right. Microsoft Teams Toolkit with John Miller.
Thanks, David. Recent highlights for the Teams Toolkit. We have the stable release 4.2 in VS Code. That includes the dashboard template, which kind of gives you a quick way to scaffold out that UI if you want to build an app like that. So it gets you a jump start there. We have some improvements for the latest support on SPFX, and some SSO configuration quality of life improvements, and also support for bots. Also want to mention there is the 17.5 preview 2 of the VS extension. And this is really the first preview of the stuff I've been talking about over the last few weeks, where you can start to configure more of the toolkit and do things like use a lot of existing resources, whether that's existing Teams apps IDs or AAD app IDs or infrastructure resources, things like that the toolkit helps provision. You can configure that to use existing things, which you couldn't really do before easily. So happy to get feedback on that if you have time to play with it. And just a note, that preview for VS, it will remain in preview throughout 17.5 and will continue the preview in 17.6. So it will not ship in 17.5 stable. So if you do try it, just know that it will not land in 17.5. We're going to keep the preview going so we have more time for feedback and we can iterate on the features there. What's next? We're going to continue that also in the VS Code toolkit for that kind of app and project model configuration. And we're looking for feedback. If you've saw my ping if you're an MVP and you saw my ping in the Teams channel, we're trying to communicate that more. But if you want to try these things and you didn't see that communication, just reach out to me. I'm happy to share a build with you or set up a call and just demonstrate it to you and just hear your feedback. So just reach out. Next, also support for Office add-ins. That'll be coming in the VS Code toolkit first. So you'll be able to scaffold Office add-ins, and that'll be the new Office add-ins using the shared Teams manifest schema. And if you have an old one, you'll be able to upgrade and then use the toolkit to debug and continue on with them. And then we're also investigating how to make it easier to get started with bots and build bots. So we're not really sure what that looks like yet. We have some ideas. We'd love to get feedback, show you what we're thinking, figure out what would help, etc. So of course, there's always an open invitation to talk to us either about Teams Toolkit or just Teams DevX in general, and just let us know what you need or what's challenging. So back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Well done. All right. Microsoft Graph Toolkit. If you've been hearing a lot about Graph and going, what's that? Well, you might know that Microsoft Graph Toolkit is the easiest way to learn about Microsoft Graph and utilize it. So these are very simple ways in which you can take advantage of inserting the graph into your solutions by pasting and starting with copying and then pasting. It's that easy. I jumped straight to pasting. Didn't even need to copy it. It's that awesome. Take a look, learn more. They are absolutely there for you to use. Seb will be back soon to talk a little bit more about it. So we look forward to those updates. Now let's go over to independent publisher connectors with Jocelyn.
Hi, everyone. Also, happy Lunar New Year's to anyone who celebrates. As always, we have some updates in the world of independent publisher connectors. As we are fresh off of some deployment freezes from the holidays, we have some submissions and certifications from some of our regulars, including Troy with Readwise, Fordos with Swagger Connector, as well as with Language Tool. We also have Postman from Tomas and T-Sheets QuickBook Time with Artesian Software. Thank you guys so much for your contributions as always, and we are at a total of 72 independent publishers in our community. I cannot believe that we are already at 924 connectors across the entire ecosystem of independent publishers, verified publishers, and first-party connectors. It really feels like it was just last week, but it was actually a month ago that we just crossed the 900 connector threshold. But this is a huge deal because we have an internal push to hit 1,000 by end of fiscal year, which is a whole 5 months away, and we are already a quarter there, much due to your contributions. So please reach out to me if you have any questions about how you can get involved in the independent publisher community. Links will be in the chat, and I'd love to see some PRs on our GitHub. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Joss. Now let's go over to Mr. Script Samples, Paul Bullock.
Hello, everybody. So Script Samples is a place where you can share scripts with the community. So whether this be PowerShell scripts with, say, for example, PnP PowerShell, SPA Management Shell, Microsoft Graph SDK, CLI for Microsoft 365, and much, much more. And these get exposed as well to the sample gallery. And we've had an absolute ton of new incredible scripts being submitted in the last couple of weeks. So I'm really, really grateful and thankful for all those that have contributed. So just running through those. We've got some new scenarios with the Azure CLI and Microsoft Graph. So this is uploading uploading a large file to SharePoint with the Microsoft Graph REST API by Paul Matthews. We've got an example using the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK, which is creating dynamic and uninstall Azure AD groups using the Graph again by Andrew Taylor. We've got a set of new PnP PowerShell scripts. So we've got create and apply site design by Reshmi Akalu, so that's super awesome. Enable page scheduling and modern sites by Nandip Nachan. We've got retrieve message center announcements and post teams by Valeris Nablutus. We've also got create document sets in SharePoint libraries by Jimmy Hang. We've got another example for enable site collection ad catalog on specific sites using a CSV, again by Nandip Nachan again, which is super, super cool. Extract the employees shown on modern pages, author byline, and a selection of site collections to CSV by Casper Larsen. We've also got a new scenario using the Azure AD module. This just shows how diverse the repository is growing with these different tool sets, which is super cool. So creating an Azure AD app, adding the permissions, and then connecting to SharePoint by Valeris Nablutus. We've got an updated sample, so you can update samples with variances. So if you submit a new scenario, you can submit alternatives for that sample. So Adam Waljak has submitted, again, creating that AD app and permissions and correct with SharePoint, but you can do this with the CLI for 365 now. And a new updated scenario for PnP PowerShell where you can deploy those SPKG files and install those apps to sites by Matteo Serpi as well. Well, absolutely thank you for all of the contributions. We've also done some tweaks to the contribution guidance as well, just to help you out. But again, I'm always looking for feedback. Casper's already pinged me with some feedback, so that's super cool. And again, if you want to contribute, we do have a repo with some sample ideas on there, or if you've got your own, bring them along. And again, start that submission base. Reach out to me if you want any help. I'm open on Twitter or LinkedIn or whichever platform's not dying. And then I can certainly help you out with that. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul, and excellent to see all of those. All right, in the interest of time, we'll move on to Bob with team samples.
Thanks, David. I actually want to highlight 4 different team samples this week. And what they all have in common is that every one of them has a full hands-on lab to go with it. The first one, you may have seen some of these, but they're worth revisiting and using for various purposes. The HR consulting app has been around since the very beginning. I think the concept came from Bill Bliss, who was one of the original creators of Microsoft Teams, and it's recently been updated by Scott Perham and his colleagues over in the UK. There are 2 versions. One is in C#, and Jack Lewis, that's the other guy. Sorry. There are two samples. One is C#, one is TypeScript, and you just have to know to look for a PDF file in the root of the repo to get the lab instructions if you want to learn while you stand up that app. One Productivity Hub is another one that has a full hands-on experience, and that one uses the Graph Toolkit and shows you how to use the Graph Toolkit with very little code. I put JavaScript, but very little, to make a really cool solution in Microsoft Teams. Then there's the emergency response site, which I actually wrote this one, and it's kind of all about every way that I could think of to bring SharePoint pages and SharePoint framework into a Microsoft Teams app. So you end up with a fully installable app that might help you to, kind of manage an emergency if you had a team of people. And then finally, and I know you've heard me plug this before, but I'm not going to stop yet, is the Northwind Orders app is part of Teams App Camp, which is a complete hands-on experience. You can see the URL where you're given a working app, web-based app, and then you port it to become a Teams app and even sell it in the Teams store. Maybe you have an app in mind. Maybe you have an app that you think could help other companies or other people, and you'd like to put it in the App Store, and you'd like to put it into Teams. Well, go to aka.ms/appcamp, and we have a special envisioning session coming up on January 31st. And if you go to the App Camp site, you'll see an announcement about that in the upper right corner. So that's it for me. Thank you, David. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Well done. Thank you, Bob. And last but not least, Power Platform samples with April.
Thanks, David. So we have one sample to highlight today. We have the PDF Reader Creator Kit by Angelo. So we all love the Power Platform Creator Kit there. So this is using that to give us a PDF Reader application in Power Apps. It uses the auto with label, the full details list, and the search box components there from the Creator Kit, and using containers, which is great practice for responsive design. So great sample from Angelo. If you have your samples that you want to contribute there, we'd love to see them in the repo. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you. And there's that upcoming Sharing is Caring session in February. So definitely sign up for that, everybody. All right. We're running a little behind schedule, so we're going to dive into picture time with Vesa. Definitely share those cameras, and we'll get that snapped really fast. We promise. So we don't take any time from our amazing presenters. We know everybody's waiting for that.
Yes, let's wait a few more seconds. We'll get the 50 people most likely in the room. We do have a lot of people actually on the show again, once again. And now it looks better. So that's good. Few more people. We have 50 seats in the room. 50 seats in the room. I will put the recording on. Let's wait for a while still. Let's wait for a while. Let's wait. Patience. I think we're good to go. Let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thank you for joining. Hand waving. Excellent. And we'll grab a GIF animation of that. Thank you, everybody, for joining once again, and keep the feedback coming. Thank you. And David,
awesome.
Back to you.
Thank you, Vesa. All right. So let's get to our amazing presenters. Woo! Luise is going to start off with extend Azure AD to add pronouns to a people card component in Power Apps using Microsoft Graph. Luise, take it away.
Okay, so let me show my screen. I think you should be able to see this right now.
Looks great. Got it.
Okay, super cool. I wanted to extend Azure AD because I felt like pronouns would be a thing, and it would be super cool if I could have an app and show pronouns in there. Very, very short about me. So hi, my name is Luise. I'm an M365 and Power Platform consultant based in Germany. I'm an MVP. I blog at m365princess.com, and you will surely find me on Twitter at Luise Freese. The best way to, of course, build something like that, like a component for a people card, would be Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And it's pretty amazing how easily you could do that in code. The problem with that is that those components of Microsoft Graph Toolkit, they are not available in Power Apps. So I talked about this before, and I will talk about this again. So I would love if Graph Toolkit would be available in Power Platform natively. Until to that point, I would just keep on creating my own components that look like MGT components, but in fact they aren't. So I was a little bit disappointed that even in that MGT component for this people card, there are no fields for pronouns. And that comes back that in Azure AD, there is no field for pronouns. And I was like, but there needs to be a way so that I cannot just like only locally, just like update some value, but that this is that just like in Active Directory, and that I can then query this with Graph. So what I wanted to do, or what I did, is I created a directory extension for Azure Active Directory in Graph Explorer, which is just like the easiest way how to do this, by associating a new property to the user object. So we can do this with the user, with the group, with devices, and so on and so forth. But I decided to do that with the user because I wanted to add pronouns for a user. So that's just like made sense to me to do this. When we do that, we create this property, but after that, we need to patch a user object with this new property that we created. And after that, we, of course, want to check if that new property and the new value for that new property now is in place. So we're going to check this as well. And after we see that this is going to happen in Graph Explorer, we need to bring the power of the Graph API into Power Platform. And that can only happen through a custom connector, which we first need to create in order to bring those calls into a Power App. And then we will use that custom connector in a Power App to display these new pronouns and to patch those new pronouns that we want to have on a people card. So this is what I have in mind. I would love to demo this, just like and see what we have. So the look that I was aiming for was something like this. So you can see this is a people card. We have this here in dark mode. Should be working in default mode as well. And you can see we have just like a couple of tabs, and we have some skills and just like information that is usually surfaced in Office Delve. Yes, so this still exists. And this makes it just like easy for people to retrieve the information about other people that they are likely to work with. This is what we're aiming for. How is this going to work? So first, of course, we need to create that extension for Azure Active Directory, but we need to have an app registration first in order to do so. So I will quickly just like pull up Visual Studio Code because there's my terminal, and I will register an application. My favorite way on how to do this is CLI for Microsoft 365. So we go M365 AAD app add. We provide it with a name. We tell it will need to have a secret. We'll give it some permissions, and we will grant admin consent. Just like hit enter. Yes, I should update. I know this. And it provides us with all the values that we are interested in. And the most important value now is the object ID. It is not the app ID of this app that we just registered, because we will need this to create that extension property. So what we will be doing in Graph Explorer, say it's v1.0, and then go for applications / then I will paste in my new object ID, and I will go for extension properties and do this. So what we're going to do right here, I want to have user pronouns, and I want to associate that with the user object. This is a get, so this of course needs to be a post. I'll post this, and I will get the 201, which means that has been created. And it also returns here the name of that new property, which is always extension, then an underscore. Then this here is the app ID, not the object ID, but the app ID of the app registration, and then the name that I gave it here. So we will grab this here because we need it later on. And now I would need to have a user ID, because I now want to patch a user with a new pronoun. So easiest way on how to do this is just like to see who am I. So I will get /me. I will run this. Doesn't matter if there's a request body in here, because with the get request, it will ignore this here. And I will see, okay, so this here is my own user ID. So what are we doing right now is I'm going ahead and say, okay, so I want to patch, and I do want to patch users, and there is a specific user which I want to do this. So this is my own ID. That should be doable for that. And now I will delete this and say, okay, all right. That should do the job. And I copied the name of my new property. And now I will not just need to provide a value for that. In my case, it should be she, her. And now I will run this query, and it will say 204, which is no content, which means that succeeded. In order to know if that worked, you would assume that I could just like say, okay, so get this user. And of course, we can try this, but this will not return my pronouns because they are only returned when I specifically select this. So I will say I want to have that property, and most probably display name as well, because it's just nicer to do that. And once I do that, I see this is my name and these are my pronouns. This is what's happening behind the scenes. So let's see how we do this in a custom connector. So I already created a custom connector. It points to the Graph API. I log in with credentials from an app registration, and I defined 4 actions. In this case, I will show you 2 of those. One is the get user, and get user points to /users/user ID, which I will then provide dynamically. And of course, it has this select query as well, so that I can show you this here as well. No, it doesn't show here, but in the test it does show, so that I can put in all the properties that I want to have returned. And in the patch pronouns, it is the same endpoint, but I'm patching now. I will provide a user ID, and I do have a defined body, and this body is just like the extension and a value for that, so that I can make the same request that I did previously in Graph Explorer, but with a custom connector. I created a nice application. In this nice Power Apps application, I have my people card over here. So you can see it can expand, it can collapse again. I can select different people here. I'm here as well. You can see my pronouns are she and her. I can even tap here through the different tabs. So this here is a component that I created, and it gets the presence status for all the people I work with from the Presence API on Graph. So this is a pretty cool thing. So let's select Alex. So Alex right now has no pronouns. Let's give him him pronouns. So there is a submit button. I would just hit that submit button and refresh this, and you can see now Alex has he, him pronouns. So how does that work? In that submit button, it is super easy. I would just say the graph connector. So this is the name of my custom connector. I will call the action patch pronouns, and I will pass in a user ID. So that user ID comes from my component. So this is an output property. It's the selected person ID, and I swear it's just a user ID. And then I pass in a value for the name of that extension. And I know it looks ugly, but trust me. So this is just the very same thing that we saw previously in Graph Explorer, and then I provide the value, and that is just whatever is in that text input box. And after that, I will reset that text input so that this is clear again, and that's the entire magic of how to extend Azure AD with Graph API in Power Apps. Very short maybe about the component itself. That is quite interesting one. So it has a gazillion of nested containers, of course, to make that happen. And you see it still needs a little bit of polish. So there is some bugs still involved. So I will provide the sample a little bit later. But I already blogged about the solution, and I think David can paste in the link as well here. But what we do is to display those pronouns is the very same thing that we previously saw in the Graph Explorer. It is again the graph connector .getUser, so the action that I showed you. Then, as this is inside of the component, not outside of the component, we do not need to leverage an output property of the component itself, but we can just go for the gallery. So that here is the gallery, and whoever, whatever is there selected, then the ID property, and then we're going to select. So, and I selected display names and skills and extensions and the extension for the user pronoun, and then I only want to return the pronouns which have this super ugly property name, but still it works, and therefore this is she and her. And with that, quickly back to my demo, to my slides. There we go. So what you need to remember is it is just the /users endpoint. So this is a super powerful endpoint for literally everything that you would want to do with a user. And for the components, so one gallery, the nested containers for every tab, and then every container in that app. So this can be a little bit intricate, but I promise I will publish that as a sample. And then the presence API and user/ID to get the skills, the about me, to get responsibilities, just like all the info that is usually surfaced in Office Delph. And blog post is here, sample is coming soon. And with that, back to you, David.
Excellent, Luise. Fantastic. I love how you're using technology to be more inclusive. This is a great, great example. So all those links are in the chat, everybody, and we've got some opportunities for you to collaborate with Lisa coming up soon. But first, she's a pro's pro, got us back on time. Lee Ford is up next. Create a conversational bot in Teams using OpenAI. Lee, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Today, I'm going to talk to you about building a conversational Teams bot with OpenAI, not OpenAPI, that's something completely different. And the idea is we'll kind of go through the sample and show you how it all hangs together. So as I said, I'm a solution architect for a company called Symity based in the UK. And hopefully it will let me pick my, there we go. So a bit about myself, I'm based in the UK, in Birmingham, to be exact. You can follow me on Twitter, I've got a GitHub, and obviously you can follow my blog, which I do blog very occasionally. I'm a Microsoft MVP in M365 development, and I mainly work in Microsoft technology, so M365, Azure, and the like. Obviously, I like to write code for a living. That's why I'm on this call. And when health permits, I do like to go for a run. But yeah, there we go. So what is a conversational bot? Exactly, and that's the term that I've just sort of coined for this session. And we'll go over what it's not first, which is it's not a Q&A bot. So we're not asking it a question, expecting an answer like what is 2 + 2, or what's the weather today. It's more kind of advanced than that. It's also not a fixed or predetermined path bot, or sometimes called a waterfall dialogue, where you've got a predetermined path that if you answer option A, for the first question, it's then going to present 3 other questions down the road that are predetermined because you chose option A at the beginning of the conversation. That's again not what we're talking about. Conversational bot. What we're talking about is a bot that you can have a conversation with without any predetermined outcome or paths. So you can put whatever you want as a question or as a task, and you don't necessarily know what you're going to get back because it's not sort of being coded or predetermined what's going to happen. So who or what is OpenAI? So I did think about using ChatGPT to ask question, but instead this is actually what OpenAI call themselves. So they're a research and deployment company, and they're trying to effectively help AI be adopted out there in the world, obviously to benefit all of humanity. So let's see how that goes over the years. So what can you do with OpenAI? So there are different products, and there's probably ones that I'm not going to cover here, but the three main ones that we're going to sort of talk about here are DALL-E 2, which has been around a little while now. I think there's some samples of this running already with sort of M365 products, but the idea is that you can generate an image from a description. So you could say, draw a panda living on the moon, or something really random, and the idea is it will try and generate that based on the description. And the more descriptive you are, generally the better the generated image is. So that's one. Another one is GPT-3. That's what we're going to talk about today in a few minutes. And this one is sort of, I was saying, natural language conversation. So the idea is that it's not predetermined. You can kind of have a back and forth with the GPT-3 product, and it's going to kind of, in theory, lead to a good outcome. And the final one is ChatGPT, which everyone probably already knows what it is. It's quite a hot topic at the moment. Obviously, that's currently in preview. There's no APIs for it, so you have to use it through their web page. You can kind of have session tokens and all that sort of stuff, but we're not going to cover that today. So that is sort of an enhanced version or a trained version of GPT-3, or specifically GPT 3.5. That's been tweaked to sort of better lead a conversation than sort of the standard GPT-3 product. So a quick word on ChatGPT in a bit more detail. It's not to be confused with ChatGPT is not to be confused with GPT-3. They are kind of one's based on the other, but they are separate. So today we're not going to cover ChatGPT. As I mentioned, there's no real API that I can integrate with yet, so it doesn't make sense to have a session on it really. Instead, we're going to talk about GPT-3, as they are supported within an AI API, and we can go over that. So what is GPT-3? It understands and generates natural language. So it's not necessarily just generating the natural language, as in, write me a poem about, whatever. It also needs to understand what we're asking it. So it could be a simple, what is 2 + 2, or it could be, 2 paragraphs asking it to do something. They're different ends of the spectrum, but ultimately they're both natural language. So this is used using different models. So in GPT-3, there is more than one model, and we'll cover that now. We have 4 models, and each model has like an iteration of it. So the top one, DaVinci 003, so that's the 3rd iteration of the model. That is generally the most advanced one, so that's where you're going to get the best results. Ultimately, there is a higher cost associated with that one. And then also we have Ada, which is the most sort of basic, I guess, and that's generally used for smaller tasks or more simple tasks that don't involve particularly complicated scenarios. So we'll quickly go over the solution that we have. It's a very simple solution. We have in this case, a Teams client that's connected to an Azure bot registration or an Azure bot, and then that connects up to a HTTP request trigger in an Azure function. Today, the demo I will run locally, but so it could be hosted in Azure. So it's a very simple stack, and that connects to an OpenAI API to allow the sort of the AI to kind of form a response. So the general flow is Teams client will send a message to the Azure bot. The Azure bot will send it to the Azure function. The Azure function will then send that text that's been sent from Teams to the API. The API will respond with an answer, and that then goes down to back down to the client. So it's a very straightforward scenario. I'm losing my voice, so I do apologize. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So let's just quickly go to the demo. So let me quickly show it you in live. So as you can see here, I've got a conversation. I'm asking it what its favorite number is. It's told me it's 17, but literally 5 minutes ago it told me it was 8. and now it's 7. So you know, very silly conversation, but it kind of shows you that there is, you know, a bit of variance and a bit of sort of playfulness with the AI. So I can now ask it a different question. So I can say, what is your favorite drink? I have no idea what it's going to say, but we'll find out. What percent that is? Something to think about it. Iced green tea. Okay, I'm not even sure what that is, but I'm sure it's delicious. So again, yeah. Okay. What else do you like? And again, we can ask it another question, and it's going to think about it. Okay, I was more about the drink, but okay, you can be a bit more open than that. Okay, so there we go. That's what they like. So we'll quickly cover the sort of the Azure part of it now, which is generally in this scenario, I've only got the Azure bot. Obviously, if it was running in Azure, you might have the Azure functions in here as well. But I will show that in sort of like running locally to show you how it all works. So as far as a configuration goes, we've literally got a bot profile. You can give it a name, upload a logo, and then from a configuration point of view, as I said, as it's running locally on my machine, I've got ngrok to sort of tunnel the bot back through to my local machine. And that's about it from a configuration point of view in here. It's very straightforward. From a channel perspective, obviously we're using Teams, but you can use other channels. The sample does actually work with other channels. Obviously, it's a Teams-focused session, but there's nothing to stop you using the code in other ways. Okay, so let's quickly go into showing you that. So if I run it in web chat, so this is obviously not in Teams, I still get the bot, and I can say, do you like cheese? Okay, let's see what they say. It's like cheese. Okay. Which is your favorite? Okay. And again, so this is a different conversation to the one in Teams. It's using the same code. Okay, that's not quite right, but okay, that's AI for you. Okay, so that is it from the configuration point of view, I think, in Azure. So I'll quickly flip over to the code. I'm conscious that we don't have too much time, so I might just make that slightly larger for everyone to see. So this is the sort of the main entry point into the Azure function. So we're effectively creating an OpenAI bot instance, and we are sort of authenticating. So if I just show you the code here for the authentication part, we are using, in this case, because we're running locally, we're using an app password, but the code is configured in a way using the cloud adapter that we could absolutely use NSI. So if this is running in Azure, we don't need to use client secrets and whatnot. So we're effectively receiving the message, we're creating an instance of or getting an instance of the bot, and then we're sending it to the bot to run the code. So if we look at the code for the bot, it's actually quite straightforward. We have two activity handlers. So I'll cover the first one, sort of the second one first, which is a very straightforward one. So when a member is added to the chat, so like we were showing you in the web chat, we send a welcome message. Pretty straightforward. A bit of code here. We have an adaptive card that's obviously got the welcome message in, and then we go through and we send the attachment as an activity. Just say, hey, welcome, ask me any question, whatever. And then the main part of the code is in here, and this is where we're using an OpenAI API key to get the sort of be able to call the OpenAI API. And we're using the official OpenAI module, which we're importing up here, and passing it a prompt. We're also passing it the model that we want to use. So if you remember before, there was 4 different models, and we are, I'll show you how we configure that in a minute, but it's pretty straightforward. And we're also configuring how many tokens. So the more tokens you provide it, generally the better response, or the better or potential for a response that you get back. So maybe we're getting not great results today in this particular demo with the answers it's giving. If you give it more tokens, maybe you'll get a better answer back. So once we've got we create the completion, we We sort of wait for the response. Once the response comes back, we choose the first choice, because generally there's only one choice that comes back from an answer. We take the text from that and we pipe that into an adaptive card. So we've got the answer card, which I'll show you in a minute, and we effectively inject the answer into the card. Once that's been injected, we then send the adaptive card back to the Teams client as an activity. So we attach the card to the activity and send it. From a configuration point of view in Teams, it's pretty straightforward. We set up an app manifest. We put in where we've got the app ID. That's the app ID of the. If I quickly go back to the in here, we've got the app ID that's generated when we create the Azure bot. So we would specify that as the app ID, and we just need to specify it in a couple of places. So I use it in the ID of the app, but you could use a different ID there. But mainly it needs to be in here, and you can just obviously specify the ID and what scopes the bot can run with inside of. That's it for the manifest. And then finally, I'm going to change these, so don't worry, you don't need to screenshot these, but these are, where we have the ID, the app ID, the tenant ID, obviously the app password. Like I say, in production, you're going to be using MSIs, and no one should be doing this, obviously, because it's running locally on my machine for the demo. I'm obviously using an app password. The OpenAI model, again, I'm using the DaVinci 003. In your scenario, you may not need something as advanced as that. You could use an Ada or the Babbage or something like that, where you want something a little bit less expensive. So each time you're calling the API, it's not costing you as much. And then also we've got the API key, which is required to call the API. Anyone can sign up for the OpenAI API account, and you get, like, I think it's about $20 worth of credit, something like that you can spend within 3 months, I think. So if you want to try this today, you don't have to worry about registering for an account and waiting to hear back. You can kind of get started today. And then finally, I'll just quickly show you the adaptive card. So we have a very straightforward format here. We've literally got two text blocks, and this is the welcome card. It's just saying, ask me a question. And then the answer card is even simpler. We literally have some large text with the answer, which gets injected into the card. And I think that's it from a code point of view. So I'm just going to go back to the deck. And last thing is to say thank you for listening. I do have a sort of the code provided. I've put it into the dev sample PnP repo. So obviously, welcome to have a look and try it out for yourself. Thank you.
Really great stuff, Lee. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Love the fun that you can have there with the bot and all of that. Okay, let's take a look at wrapping up our call day. Thank you both for helping keep us on time as well. Okay, so how about it for our amazing presenters today? We got some power up, right? Whoop, whoop. And we need to give them a round of applause for all this. That's fantastic. Now, for those that are watching this recording or think after the call, I'd love to keep talking to them. For example, Luise showed us how to use pronouns using Power Apps and Microsoft Graph. Folks, technically that could be used for nicknames. There's so many applications here. It doesn't have to be used just for the context to which Luise was showing it. There's so much more uses for that. And you might want to talk to Luise about how you could utilize that in your organization. So guess what? We have an opportunity to do that going forward on our calls. We're calling it Community Calls Conversations. Let's continue the conversation. Now, what we're doing, we're creating dedicated space to help and continue the conversation from our multiple community calls throughout the month. This is going to give you an opportunity to interface in one place with the rest of the community and the presenter for each demo. It's going to be done on the Power Apps forum sites. And so you're going to be able to connect directly with our presenters. There's dedicated threads for you to talk with them and other members of the community, asking questions and working together, especially if you're watching this and it's recorded, you're not able to be on the live chat. We want to make sure you've got a space and an opportunity. And to make it even easier, we're setting you up with AKA links and QR codes. So all you need to do is scan or go to these AKAs and you'll have full access. Our presenters are going to be in those threads, listening and waiting and watching and wanting to converse with you. So don't hesitate to get involved. If you don't have an account on the Power Users site, it is absolutely free to set it up. It's much like Tech Community, so you can absolutely interface in the same way if you're used to and comfortable with that. We're going to be offering this ongoing. Those threads will be open perpetually, so you'll always be able to come back and connect. And we're looking for ways like this to provide you more opportunities to collaborate and connect with like-minded, passionate individuals such as yourself. All right, so we look forward to seeing you in those conversations. Recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft Community YouTube channel. You can access all of our YouTube accounts at aka.ms/community/videos. And if you subscribe, you'll get alerted as soon as they're available. You will not be able to download the recording from the Teams chat. So it's not worth the try. Don't worry. You will have access to YouTube, and subscribe, as I mentioned, you'll know right away. Follow us on Twitter at Microsoft365Dev or at M365PnP. You'll also get the news and the latest goodness there. The next general dev call will be February 2nd, 2 weeks from today, 7 a.m., same bat time, same bat channel. And of course, don't miss the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework call 1 week from today, January 26th at 7 a.m. as well. You can see all the community calls at aka.ms/community/calls. Download those invites, get them on your calendar. It's going to be awesome. You're going to finish these calls and you're going to be like, oh yeah, it's awesome. You want to be back for more. So don't hesitate. Thank you, everybody, for the fantastic communication, collaboration, and conversation. Let's keep those conversations going in our conversations threads. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much.